Hello, 9H. I hope you're all doing very well. This is a continuation of the slideshow slash video show of the mini research paper. So I'm just going to review the fact that I told you about the introduction, and I want to remind you about what I said. First of all, the introduction should be interesting. That's a little bit tough, but if you don't follow formulas, you might have a shot at it. Also, the sentence must be in logical order, which means that the one that's most general comes first, and we go down to the thesis at the end of the first paragraph. Remember to use transition to connect your sentences so that the second sentence sounds like it came out of the first, and the third sounds like it came out of the second. And that's I'm giving you an example there of how transition works. I would also like you to remember the triangle, which was in the first video, and that just gives you a mental picture of how to do the introduction or what it should look like. I mention again that every sentence must connect to the previous sentence because, again, that's transition, and it is very important. I would say, in general, you don't want to include facts or quotes in the intro. It's a little bit harder to do than an intro without it, but you can do it. It's not wrong, but most of the time you will leave out any quotes and any kind of information you bring in that's not common knowledge. Again, just as a review, make sure you proofread your introduction for grammar. Make sure you proofread it for proper punctuation. Make sure you proofread it so that it has transition. Make sure you proofread it so that all the sentences are in order so they land on the thesis. And most of all, because you've been forgetting, make sure you denote the titles. What does denote mean? It means indicate. Remember, full-length works underlined or in italics. Remember that shorter works, and that's what you're using mostly. You're using articles on the internet. Those are in quotation marks. Remember also that the comma and the period go before the quotation marks. So please keep those things in mind. If you look across on the right, it gives you a pretty good intro that gives you an idea of what your intro can be like. Notice this person used I, that is John Q. Student. You can use I in this paper. I wouldn't use you, though, because that's really not necessary. Okay, now we get to the body paragraphs. Well, first of all, each of your body paragraphs is going to give a single reason. You've already developed 3 reasons, so you know that each body paragraph is going to take one of those 3 reasons you developed for the oral presentation and use them in a separate paragraph. Now, I start in this next section talking about what the first sentence of each body paragraph should look like. Well, the first sentence should clearly express one of the reasons that you're going to be highlighting in that particular paragraph. It must be a well-constructed sentence, and ideally, it should have transition so that it refers back to or connects to the previous paragraph. That's really, really important. And again, within the body paragraph, each sentence is connected by transition. And here's another requirement of the mini research paper. You notice that I say in each and every body paragraph, the 3 of them, you don't have to worry about the 4th body paragraph, which is the counterargument. But in each body paragraph, you must have at least 2 sentences that require parenthetical citations. What that means is that each of the 2 sentences that are going to use parenthetical citations must either have a quotation in it or it must have something that's not common knowledge. I want you to do this because I want you to practice using parenthetical citations. Please remember that's a parenthetical citation that uses the MLA format. So again, each sentence that contains a quote or a fact that you didn't know before, again, not common knowledge, must end with a parenthetical citation which uses the MLA format. And more than 2 such sentences, of course, would be fine. So if you have 3 facts to put in there, or 3 quotes, or 2 quotes and 1 fact, that's fine. You've got to understand that in a full-length research paper, it's very often the case that every single sentence ends with a parenthetical quotation. Sorry, parenthetical citation. You could have never mind. Again, the quotes and the facts should be incorporated seamlessly. Now, you don't have to have the exact quote. You can leave out the quotation marks and paraphrase, which is just as good. But if you do that, you still have to have a parenthetical citation because it's something you didn't know before you did the paper. And again, the quotes must be incorporated seamlessly. Sure, once in a while you could say, Andrew said, but most of you at least, know how to incorporate them by breaking them up. And that's probably, at least occasionally, a better way. Also, again, any fact you include, make sure it becomes part of your sentence, anything that's not common knowledge. You should always use the proper punctuation, which means quotation marks may have to be there if it's a direct quote. Remember that proper punctuation means it's period at the end of a sentence, but when you have a quotation mark and a parenthetical citation following it, you'll have quotation, parenthetical citation, and then you'll have a period. No commas in the parenthetical citation. Now, you could omit the parenthetical citation if you mention the author's name or the name of the title in the sentence itself, because what's the point of putting it down twice? If there's a page number you want to list, certainly you can have a parenthetical citation at the end of a given sentence with just a page number, but that's only if you included either the author's name in the sentence or you put in something that indicated the title. Remember, most titles, again, are in quotation marks. Same thing within the parenthetical citation. I'm giving you some examples here which could help a lot. Notice the first sentence gives me credit. According to Schwartz, about 67% of the general population suffers from analgesic amnesia. I really must apologize. There is no such thing as analgesic amnesia, at least that I'm aware of, but this is an example. Notice I put the author's name in there. I would assume that there is some article that would give me the fact that 67% of the general population suffers from analgesic amnesia. But to avoid a parenthetical citation, I've given the name of the author. In this case, of course, it's me. What does that mean? Now, here's the important thing. You see that it's by Schwartz. That means if I flip over to the works cited page, I should see in alphabetical order when I get to S, the name Schwartz. Needless to say, if it's not alphabetical, for instance, if the name of the author was Skeleton, that would have a K in it, so it would come after Schwartz, the entry. So keep in mind, it still must be in alphabetical order. Notice I have another example here, and I've, in this case, included both the author's name and the title. There is certainly no reason for a parenthetical citation unless I want to give the page number. So I have John Newbery, and I also have How I Saved the World is the title of the book. And I did include a quotation here. Notice it's not in isolation. It's part of my sentence. It says that John Newbery indicates in his book, How I Saved the World, that, quote, over 1/4 of the world's population has problems remembering when they were born, which is silly, but what the heck. So I have the quote. Now notice I'm not putting in a parenthetical citation. Why? Because not only do I have the author's name, but I have the title. Now, what would I look under if I wanted to find this on the works cited page? As you'll find out later, and I'm introducing it now, if you have the author's name, you will alphabetize it by the author's last name. So this particular this one doesn't need a parenthetical citation, but it should appear on my works cited page, and it will be under N for Newbery. If I didn't have John Newbery's name and all I had was the title of the book, in other words, in the book, How I Saved the World, it says that, quote, over 1/4 of the world's population has problems remembering when they were born. Notice if I do that, I would look under H to find the entry on the works cited page. Why? Because I'm no longer alphabetizing by the N in John Newbery. I don't know the author's name, so I start with the title and I use the first word of the title, the first letter in the title, and that's where it's going to be alphabetized. Notice this is done for a good reason, actually, and that's to allow the reader to find the book, article, or whatever's on the works cited page so they can find it immediately and check it, and maybe even find it for themselves. That can happen. Now, there's some other examples here. The first one doesn't have anything that would tell me what the author's name is or the titles. So I really have to have a full-fledged parenthetical citation. Notice I'm assuming that I got this information by either an article or a book by a person named Borden. Okay? I might have the title, I might not. The only way the reader, that's me, or the marker, that's me, will know where to find it is to look at the B in Borden, and alphabetically, it should be under B. Notice the punctuation where you don't have any quotation marks to worry about. You have a parenthesis for the parenthetical citation, and then you have the period. If you put the period after the word feet, it is wrong. There is no negotiating this. This is precision work. And if you think you can rush through it and you manage, you're a better person than I am. This takes a lot of time. Here's another example. Hysteria was common when Orson Welles produced the radio broadcast that claimed that we had been invaded by Martians. That's true. And notice the name of the author is not Orson Welles. He must have mentioned Orson Welles. We obviously don't even have the author's name, but we do have the title. And in this case, it's When Radio Mattered. Notice it's in quotation marks. I would expect that it's a short work, probably an internet article. It may be a short story, but that seems very, very unusual and very, very unique. So I don't think that'll ever happen. But notice the quotation marks to indicate it's the title. Notice the period comes after the parenthetical citation, like it did on the one above. Notice when I look for this in alphabetical order, it's the W that I'm going to look for. So I'll look on the works cited page. I'll go up to the part of the list that should have W, and I should see this title. Notice in the next one, it is obvious that, quote, testing is essential when reopening America after the coronavirus. Now, in this case, I haven't mentioned a title. I haven't mentioned an author in the sentence itself, so I do have to put the parenthetical citation at the end. Now, you have a special kind of situation. We have a parenthetical citation with Bonaparte et al. Well, that's Latin et al., but Bonaparte is one of more than two authors. So in other words, when I look up there, I'm still going to look under B for Bonaparte, but I know that there are at least two other authors, because if we have more than two authors, instead of writing them all out, we use the et al. Notice quotation mark, parenthetical citation, period. Notice et period, al period. Any of this is wrong, it's wrong, period. And the last example I'm going to go over today is a sentence where it's taken from the information or the quote from some kind of article, book that has two authors. Notice in this case, you're going to have to take the time of putting both authors' names in the parenthetical citation, and they are separated by the word and. So if there's two authors, in this case, I would go to C. It should be on the works cited page under C, And then I should know that there will be two authors, Castle and French. Remember, if it was Castle, French, and Schwartz, it would say, I'm using the model above, it would say Castle, in the parentheses, of course, et al., because there's more than two authors, and that's how we do it. So I'm going to leave you with these fairly difficult concepts. Again, if you want to review this where someone is explaining it other than me, go look at Al Purdue. There are plenty of sites online that might tell you how to do this, but it's got to be MLA. Please don't give me ALA. Okay, so that's it. And I hope you have a good day. And I hope you go through this particular video more than once because I think it's a good idea. Have a good one.